Virginia. We open Friday to Sunday, 12 to 7 p.m.
Metro Silver Line now has 6 new stops, including Dulles Airport.
All right. Hello, everyone. So we just got back from watching the new Ant-Man movie. What is it called?
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Quantumania. I keep thinking it's a different name, like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum Menace. No, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum
Mania.
Yeah.
You got it.
Sorry. Anyways, yeah, it was really good. Should we spoilers?
I'd say we'll do the non-spoiler part first, and then we'll put a note on there when it goes into spoilers. We'll put a little note in the description as when we go into spoilers, because there's definitely some spoilers. I went on Facebook earlier this week, and naturally, as being a Marvel fan, somebody was nice enough to post photos and screenshots from the movie, and a little bit got spoiled for me, but she managed to make it through without getting a spoiler alert. So
yeah. I was fortunate enough to not have any spoilers. So we're not going to spoil anything for you guys, but I really enjoyed it a lot. Actually, I think I liked it better than the last Doctor Strange movie that we had. And there were a few things that I picked up from it. I was telling Andrew, like right in the middle, like whispering, like in the movie theater, I was like, this is giving me like a little bit of Star Wars vibes. Mm-hmm. Just like the imagery and some of the characters that were in it and some of the things that you saw. I don't know, it felt a little Star Warsy to me.
There's a bar scene that is right out of Star Wars, and the Mos Eisley Cantina, like almost
cantina,
down to the music.
Yeah, so there was a few references. I will say that I was expecting something to happen with the characters where somebody royally messed up, just like Star-Lord did in the last movie. It wasn't Endgame, it was Infinity War, and when I thought that, I was like, oh, they're setting up the characters to mess up, to have this like major mess up moment, right? I guess to a point it was, but not really, and I'm teetering around the plot because I don't want to.
So the basic plot is, Ant-Man, it's been some time since Endgame, and he's kind of just very sort of happy-go-lucky, and but you can tell that his daughter Cassie wants to do things, and so she creates a little device that tries to talk to the quantum realm. Things go haywire, they get more or less sucked into the quantum realm, and they come across a series of characters, including the villain of the movie, and that villain will have pretty far-reaching. That villain will be seen again in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the short future.
And I will say that in the order of things, and what Andrew just mentioned, I mean, you can watch the trailers and you'll see. Essentially, that's what the summary, or that's what I picked up from it. But I will say that you should, when you're watching this movie, it is a Marvel movie, so you got to stay till the end. And there was 2 endings, I guess you put it, right?
Yep,
so like
there's one that's sort of mid-credit. With all the Marvel movies, there's always that sort of sometimes like animated closing credits. And then it usually cuts to a mid-credit sequence. There's a mid-credit sequence, and there's also an end-credit sequence that's pretty...
Like right after the credits, yeah.
That's after everything, and that one is a nice little Easter egg for, we think, for some stuff down the line. But
yeah.
We'll do that as well.
And here's the thing. If you haven't seen any of the Disney Plus shows, I would say that you should, because this is where the very, very end credit scene is important, and that's where I'm going to leave it at.
do you feel like if they haven't? So one of the complaints about this movie has been that if you haven't seen all the Marvel media at this point, you would be completely lost. Do you feel like this movie stands on its own,
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Like, I think it definitely is better because it has the, the tie-in with the other movies, the whole multiverse realm, something that Doctor Strange touched on in, in the last film. But also, if you're watching the Disney Plus shows, especially, WandaVision, right? That tied into a lot of what the last Doctor Strange movie was talking about, and what Loki experienced. Like, these are some of the things that, you probably should watch to kind of get a better feel. Because when Doctor Strange came out and the whole multiverse world was being sequenced, you had an idea of what both Loki and Wanda were going through, in the sense that they had experienced a sense of the multiverse, right? With like Loki seeing Kang and seeing the explosion of like the different worlds and things, and then with Wanda like having her, I guess, alternate self somewhere in that cabin scene at the end credits of which movie was it? I lose track.
Yeah, but yeah. What was your favorite character in this movie? For me, without question, the best performance, Kang the Conqueror makes an appearance. He is the villain, and Jonathan Majors just did an excellent job with a villain that has menace, because we're coming, in a post Thanos reality. You have to, you have to establish pretty early on, why is Kang such a threat to be taken to the level of a Thanos or even more. And I think they're establishing that now, and they do that, I think, fairly well in this movie as to why he is deemed such a threat to the Avengers.
Right.
But I feel like we're gonna get more in other movies, but this is a good start.
Yeah, I definitely think so, and I think like this movie kind of sets up the like segue for other newer heroes to come. Obviously, we I don't think that Captain America or Tony Stark are gonna come back, because we know what happened to them in the last few movies. But as we've seen in some of the shows, Sebastian Stan's character, the Winter Soldier, and the new Captain America, what's his name?
Yeah, Falcon. Sam.
Yeah, Sam, who's the Falcon. It kind of, these shows really help to kind of set what their characters might look like.
Miss Marvel probably shows.
Miss Marvel, yeah, things like that. Having their own shows kind of helps establish them as important characters. So that way, when what I'm assuming would be like a face-off with Kang or something like that, then they're not like such a big secret, right? They have already an established story. And I think definitely the way that Kang is being set up, I think that he's going to give the heroes a run for their money. There's definitely going to be some challenges for sure. And so it'll be nice to see what that would look like for all the, the heroes that we know and love, like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, to come together maybe with the newer heroes like Miss Marvel, or any of the other characters that were in the Disney Plus, that had dedicated Disney Plus shows. So, we'll see how that turns out. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I will say that my favorite character so far in the film, I want to say, it's Ant-Man. I like the way the story starts. I like the way the story ends and where it leaves off. Cassie kind of annoyed me. Yeah.
She was a little, that was a challenge for me too.
I just feel like lately, I don't know, like they've been making these, like especially the female characters, they always make them like super hard-headed, there's always something really, I don't know, like they have to make him as a character that just doesn't listen and that has to be right all the time, and for example, like Hope, I really enjoyed her character in the film. I think she has a really important role. And it's always nice to see Michelle Pfeiffer in the films. I feel like she doesn't age at all. She looks fantastic.
I almost felt bad for Michael Douglas because I almost felt like the first half of the movie he was the gawker, sort of like, oh my gosh, this role is amazing, and then I almost felt like he didn't have enough to do. And same with Hope. I felt like those two kind of got the short end of the stick. This is Janet and Scott's and Cassie's story.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of characters, but if there are two that got the short end of it, it'd be probably those two.
Yeah, I agree. Though I think that the way that I perceived it is I feel like Hope and Cassie are being set up for something. Like to have a bigger role down the line. So I think that maybe this film wasn't supposed to be for them, but then,
So if you had to grade the movie, what would you grade it? Like letter grade, score out of 10. What would you say?
I give it I give Ant-Man a solid B.
Yeah.
Solid B. 3.5 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
I recommend on Amazon.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. I'm probably like B minus. It's I felt like it was a good movie, but I don't know if we were watching it because we all know when you go to these Marvel movies anymore that it's all connected to that, and how's it going to connect to the other movies.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we were really watching it for its own. And that's kind of the thing that I'm still kind of getting, like, as I'm still kind of processing, like, can this movie really stand on its own as an Ant-Man movie versus the connective tissue to the Marvel movies. That being said, it is easily the most consequential movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since Endgame. Probably the most consequential of all the shows and media since Loki season 1.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to say, this is like, if you've lived under a rock and never watched any of the Marvel movies, and then this is the first Marvel movie that you're watching, you're not really gonna understand the concept of it. Like, I don't think it can stand on its own. I think this movie definitely is part of that connective tissue. This movie is definitely part of that, Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think like some of the beginning movies could have stood on their own, but now so much has happened from the beginning of Iron Man all the way to now that there's just no way that they could stand on their own without there being some type of mention of some of the events that happened before, right? Whether it was, the blip, right? Yeah. And then that's one thing that's mentioned is the blip, and that seems to be the recurring topic of the previous movies before this one, like basically the one sandwiched between Endgame and Ant-Man. That has been the recurring mention from these characters and the communities that they're at is that, the blip did this, or, what was the result or some of the consequences that everyone is still living through as a result of the blip. So yeah, I don't think it would stand on its own, but overall I still really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And then some of the trailers that we saw right before the movie started included what was that one Marvel movie?
Guardians.
The
3.
third Guardians, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I think by now everyone's seen the trailers for that. Shazam, which I think everyone's seen the trailers for that, and
John Wick.
John Wick, but that Batman movie. No.
Flash.
The Flash.
Flash.
I call it the Batman because, I'm veering off topic here, but I feel a certain way about Ezra Miller, obviously, but if you watch the trailer for it, you see like Michael Keaton, and then you see Ben Affleck in it, and then we were just a little confused about like what the storyline's gonna look for DC, and
it's been hard for me. Like, I like the DC comics. I'm agnostic when it comes to DC and Marvel. I like them both. There are certain characters in both, but I'm having a hard time buying into DC considering their cinematic universe, if you will, is getting reset. And so I'm just part of me just like, as much as Shazam looks good, part of me just like, is it worth the investment of time if they're going to do a full blown reset? And that's been, I think a lot of fans are having that question of, what's it going to be? But as far as non-spoiler for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I'd still say it's a recommend. It's not. I mean, granted, it definitely is more about the connective tissue of what's going on in the cinematic universe, but it has solid performances in it. The visuals are intriguing in terms of some of the ideas they come up with. Also, if you can go see it on a screen, because the theater we saw it at did a lot of audio that was front. It didn't really have the surround sound, even though it had the surround sound speakers. So if you go watch it, make sure you watch it because there's a lot of sound in that movie. There's a lot of bass. There's a lot of the classic kind of comic book soundtrack, and I felt like we were watching on a more minimal sound scale. So that one has just been our individual theater. So
yeah,
but yeah, go see it. It's definitely worth seeing on the big screen. And I would say that's for the non-spoiler part. So if you want to stick around for the spoilers, you've been warned. Here are the spoilers. Okay.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
MODOK shows up.
MODOK shows up. Here's the thing, that didn't mean a lot to me. It was hilarious to see his face like that big with the wee little legs and little arms.
And that was the thing that got spoiled for me on social media because people were making fun of the visual effects for it. And so, but MODOK has such a instantly recognizable, if you know the comics, that's such an instantly recognizable figure that you could scroll through the feed all you want, but you can't miss a big giant head. And like so I was wondering where the moment I saw it, I was like, son of a gun.
I couldn't take him seriously. I thought he was just comical from the beginning of it all the way to the end.
That's
quite frankly, I kind of and honestly, I kind of forgot about Darren or whatever his character was. I'm like, I was like, who's that? And then they did a little flashback in the movie, and I was like, oh, that guy. I forgot about that guy. Yeah. And then also, okay, what was the first credit scene?
So the first credit scene was, it was, oh good lord.
I have short-term memory,
so the first end credit scene was big because it's basically the council. So in Marvel Comics lore, there's a thing called the Council of Kangs. Short version of it is it's basically all the variants of Kang, and they start to figure out that the Avengers killed off. Ant-Man killed off Kang the Conqueror, and that they're going to become a problem.
Yeah,
so that's essentially, when we say a movie of consequence, that was a moment where it was, to me, it almost wasn't quite, it was almost like in the first Avengers when, in the end credit scene for first Avengers, there's the scene where that Chitauri goes up to someone that we later find out to be Thanos, and they say to challenge them is to court death, and you just see Thanos turn and smile, and that was the oh crap moment. Crap, it's Thanos. They're gonna go for the Infinity Stones, and then sure enough, the Infinity Stone storyline plays out. So
yeah. So I mean, I when I saw all the other Kangs come together, and I mean, there's just like the part that it shows on that first credit scene is like a whole. So basically, the Kangs that were in charge of sending the Kang that was in the main, in the movie, they exiled him into the quantum realm. And so when they found out that he actually was killed, they were like, if these people, or these species or whatever they are, were able to kill one of us, then that means they're rising up and they can destroy our existence as a whole.
And everything that we've built.
And everything that we've built. So we got to fight back. And so it shows, the first 4, one of them has like the little thing that looks like what the Egyptian had, and then
so nods to the comic.
And and so and then you see like a whole arena of them. I mean, so that's what I was saying earlier is our heroes are going to have a lot of issues with Kang because they're dealing with Kang, but many Kangs, you know, from all the multiverses.
He's kind of like the whack-a-mole game at the arcade. Where
Yeah, it's like you kill one and then like the other one pops up, right? Except like multiply that by like 1,000 or 1,000,000,000,000 or whatever, right? So and then the last scene, there's this part where it's like you could tell that it's one of those, it's like a presentation. It opens up like somebody's giving a presentation, and you could tell the people that are in the audience are dressed in like I don't know, like clothing from like 1910 or something.
Yeah, like a Victorian era.
Like Victorian era. Yeah. And then you see Kang on stage giving a presentation about something. And in the audience, you see Loki and Owen Wilson's character like watching him horrified. Yeah. And Owen Wilson's character is like, why are you talking about him like he's you know, the scariest guy on earth? And Loki's like, because he's bad news, essentially, right? And it ends there, and it'll say, you know, Kang will return, right? With the little, you know, it's like a, you know, black screen with the white lettering. Yeah. And so that to me, I was like, oh my gosh. But this is why it's important, right? If you haven't seen Loki or any of the other shows, like that probably wouldn't resonate with you, because if you'd never watched the Disney Plus shows, and you're like, well, how is Loki there if he died, right? Well, he did, but he's a variant that survived, and now he's on this quest.
I would definitely say the very last end credit scene, you absolutely have to have watched Loki in order to get it. Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna be like, how is that possible? So yeah, so that one, that of all the end credit scenes, I think so far, that's probably, since they've done the Disney Plus shows, that's probably the most. That's probably the one where you had to watch Disney Plus. You had to watch Loki on Disney Plus, or you would have been totally lost. And
then just going back to the main thing, the crux of the storyline. I mean, it's sorry, that's our dog. He just dropped the bone like on the floor really loudly because he feels like he can. But anyway, he, you know, that's the main crux, right? They get sucked into the quantum realm because Cassie, despite the fact that, you know, Hope's mom had trepidations about her contacting or having some type of connection to the quantum realm, she does it anyway. She's really hard-headed, you know. She is a girl who's very, very committed to what she feels is right, which isn't a bad thing, but I feel like so some of these characters, they do things where it's like well-intended actions get pushed so far that they end up committing, you know, they end up being part of larger consequences of actions, right? So kind of like Star-Lord, who didn't listen and he kept punching Thanos, and, you know, and then something happened where he got away. In that sense, Cassie doesn't listen to the warnings about contacting or having a signal between Earth and the quantum realm, and she ends up essentially screwing it up for everybody, and everyone gets sucked back into this world. Hope's mom, you know, she's very secretive about her experience in the quantum realm, despite the fact that her husband and her daughter keep asking her about her you know, 30-year experience in this realm. She doesn't want to say anything about it. And so the story develops as to understanding that, you know, Kang, while she was there, Kang was exiled. She found him. She nursed him back to health, and she helped him build his spaceship back, because he had promised her that he was going to take her back to Earth, right? She wanted to go home. And so when she was able to get his ship working, because his ship is like linked to himself, when she touched it, she could see all of the horrific things he'd made. And she said, I'm not going to help you get back. And so essentially she destroyed the object that would have helped to get him back, but it also stuck her there for a very long time. So she's like, I'm not willing to go home knowing that you're going to go and make, you know, cause chaos. And so for the last 30 years, he's been like wanting to get back, and he's become this terrifying conqueror of this realm. terrorizing everybody who lives there, all the species and all the communities that live in that quantum realm. And so when Cassie gets there, she feels inclined to help all these people, or all these, you know, because there's different species, right? There's some of them that look like aliens from Star Wars,
Yep.
or, you know, they have their own ships and buildings and things like that. Things that Hope's dad didn't even know existed. So.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like and that was one of the things that kind of bugged me about the movie was a lot of the plot, at least for the first act and for not so much in the second act, but the first half, in order to set up a lot of the tension between characters, it relies a lot on, oh, I should have told you this earlier. And I feel like that's a workaround for, we didn't realize in Ant-Man 1 and 2 that we were going to have Kang as the third Ant-Man movie, so we have to figure out a way to make that all kind of fit together.
Yeah.
And so so again, it's kind of why I was going back to does it stand on its own as its own movie, or is it really about or is it really more about the connective tissue of everything? Because it's a classic screenwriting trope. Everybody, you know, a lot of movies use it, but I was like, I don't know if I'd buy that Janet wouldn't tell Hank and Hope that aspect of the quantum realm as to why this is such a dangerous place. It's, you know, don't go there.
Yeah.
And that I had a little bit of a hard time believing in the first. Like, as this movie went on, I got more into it because I really, you know, because again, it's setting up that groundwork for what's going on with what's going to happen in the later Avengers movies and whatnot. But the premise, the first act just didn't mesh for me, just because I felt like it didn't. I couldn't buy into the premise of the whole, oh, I should have told you earlier, or I should have told you this, or I should have told you that. And if you have a mass genocidal maniac, you know, that you know is in the quantum realm, I think you'd be pretty quick to tell your family and friends that have connection to the quantum realm of, don't go there.
Right.
So I had a little bit of I had a hard time getting around that one, like, as far as like the logic hurdle.
Right.
But yeah, so that was any other spoilery things? I mean,
that was pretty much it. I did like how in the beginning and the end of this movie, it started off as, you know, Ant-Man, what's his name?
Scott
Lang. Sorry. Scott Lang starts out like saying kind of tell the story like, hey, you know, I used to, you know, it's amazing that, you know, he's walking down happily down the street, and then he's like, it's amazing, I used to be like this, you know, this convict, and now everybody knows me and waves at me and stuff. And so what I appreciate about this movie is that I feel it brought back some of the light comedy that Marvel has, and it wasn't overloaded like everybody was talking about with, Thor, God of Love and Thunder. Like, it didn't have,
or even Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, it was
Multiverse of Madness.
It wasn't. Well, I wouldn't say Wakanda Forever had a lot of comedic value to it.
No, I was saying how that was more dark and serious.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Multiverse of Madness, and they've kind of gone back to the
to the it's a little light to it. Obviously, there's a conflict. So, and then at the end, it ends up with like, everybody getting, they're all celebrating Cassie's birthday. And, well, it's not really her birthday. He just lied that it's her birthday to get, like, just to have a celebration because he's missed so many of her birthdays, right? Because of the blip. And at the very end, he's just like, yeah, everything's going to be fine. Kang is gone, right? So, but you could see that he's like, he feels there's something off. So, I just really enjoyed it. I feel like it brought it back to, the type of Marvel films that, we were at first introduced with in the beginning. So yeah, but let us know your thoughts. If you have what did you think? If you watched the movie, what did you think?
Comment below, and as always, if you are interested in our adventures here in Virginia, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.
Bye.